How did I get into what I'm doing and why? Well, I got into what I'm doing. I got into what I'm doing because my daughter was racially abused, the short version,
Yeah.
and
You can tell the
the
long version if you want. We don't mind.
we might be here
Yeah,
till
yeah,
next
tell the
Christmas if
long
we do the
version.
long version.
The ones where names get called out and everything. That one.
Oh well. Yeah, well, I've been a youth worker. Like, it wasn't like social justice was a new thing to me.
Yeah.
So I've been a youth worker and a campaigner since I was a teenager, since I was 14. So I've always been, yeah, like challenging the narrative and trying to give young people a voice. Like, I was the young person that spearheaded the campaign to create the UK Youth Parliament and
Okay.
spent a number of years, of my life setting that up. 9 years in total, I was involved with UKYP.
Yeah.
And then I went to Australia, spent a couple of years there, and
Mm.
fast forward, I suppose, and I have a child that's 10 or 11 at the time, and we're on holiday. I've got this group of friends. I live in Kent with a predominantly white group of female friends, and as we talk, I'm sure you're established why I prefer females over males, male company, but yeah, those white women when children that we were on holiday with racially abused my daughter, the mother of those children got very defensive and couldn't understand what the problem was. Her boys behaved typically fragilely, as I have since learned is the like conditioned response that us as white people experience when called out on racist behavior. And then it kind of escalated to like I felt like I'd blown up my whole life because this group of friends that I'd had, some of whom I'd been friends with for like 15 years, and many of whom my daughter referred to, as Auntie so and so. And I had a conversation with the rapper Amy True, and I was like, "Oh my God, I've blown up my life. How do I deal with this? Like, how can they not understand the impact of the racial abuse on my daughter long term and like being in this, like, why won't they change?" And she was like, "Nikki, I think you need to go away and research like how little white women have done in terms of real feminism and advocacy for global majority people." And she said, "Then come back to me and tell me what you're going to do." And so then I did. I went away and I spent a lot of time listening to podcasts and YouTube videos, and books. I read a lot of books. I read, is it Nice Racism and White Fragility, and tried to just educate myself as much as possible. And like I'd been in Australia and I'd been 20 years or nearly 20 years previous to that and had a really positive experience where First Nations people had helped me to start the unlearning journey and understand my privilege of existing in a white body, and try and reconnect to some of that learning, I suppose, and because I'd spent in this time in this friendship group. I'm quite a hyper person, and I'd spent my whole life trying to fit into a box and be like approval from these people. But as you start to come out of these things, you see things from a different perspective. And so as I'm kind of finding myself and unlearning my racist conditioning, I ended up going back to Amy and said, "I'm going to create this anti-racist mums movement. I want it, ultimately, we birth these, whether we're birthing girls or birthing boys, we birth people that end up in positions of power and look around us. We've got all these cisgender heterosexual white mutated female embryos set on destroying humanity and Mother Earth for ego, greed, and because they're emotionally constipated. And the buck has to stop with us, really, at some point. As white women, and we're everywhere as well, aren't we? In all different employment situations. So like somebody has to disrupt this and has to break this cycle of us being complicit in harm and not raising inclusive anti-racist children, not raising children with any kind of morality or values. And
Yeah.
the longer I've been doing this, the more obviously I unlearn and my opinions evolve and change, and I see different patterns emerging of what is happening around us.
Yeah.
And I really think that one of the most biggest barriers to social change is us, is white women, is, you know, we seem to block everything, any progress, because we literally raise these men that are going to be horrible, feral human beings,